Hey guys, it's Will here, and welcome back to part 2 of my look at which Primarchs GW might make models for Warhammer 40k. So if you haven't seen part 1, which mainly deals with why I think they'll do more Primarchs and which Chaos Primarchs we might get, go back and watch that, links in the description. This is going to be part 2, looking at which loyalist Primarchs we might get, and once again I'm going to go through all of them, starting with the one I think is least likely to get a model, ferrous Manus, and then going all the way up to the one I think is most likely to be released for 40k. So, as you may have worked out, ferrous Manus is the one I think there's virtually no way they can justify doing. The guy was clearly decapitated in full sight of thousands of his warriors. His head and later his skull have been carted around the galaxy, having various different owners, and probably isn't even anywhere near the rest of his body at the moment. So the chance of him coming back seem pretty unlikely. So sorry Iron Hands players, but yeah, I don't suppose we'll be seeing ferrous Manus anytime soon. Next up I've got Rogal Dawn. Now this one, like some of these, there's a few sort of ways in which their final fate of the Primarch is a little unclear, even possibly conflicted among sources, but it's generally held that he died boarding a despoiler class battleship sometime after the Horus Heresy, and that only his hand was recovered, and the skeletal remains of that hand are currently held within Phalanx, the Imperial Fist's fortress. Now this, he's not confirmed dead. They've not found the rest of his body. He is missing, presumed dead, but it seems very unlikely that they would be able to bring him back. As they don't even know where the body is, where he might have gone. They think he's died aboard this Chaos battleship, and that's probably about it. But he's not completely confirmed dead, like ferrous Manus. Next up, we've got Sanguinis. Now this one, it's sad that it's so down the list, because I think a lot of people would be really keen to get this, because he is one of the most popular Primarchs, not just among Blood Angel players, but he's just really cool. But he was killed by Horus in the final battle for Terra. So it seems quite unlikely, but the reason I've put him above Dawn and Manus is just because there's something about Sanguinius. He always had that kind of something ephemeral, angelic about it, and his body was in one piece. It was in a loyalist place, so they have, if they were going to resurrect him, they have his body, so there might be something. And he's such a popular character that just maybe there's the slightest slither of a chance that they might find a way to bring him back, but it still seems pretty unlikely. So that deals with the ones that I honestly think are dead and not coming back. Now we've got a few that are missing. So we've got Corex. So after the Horus Heresy, Corex went back to Deliverance and basically was really guilt-stricken for a number of reasons, but particularly some failed experiment in making legionaries faster, stronger, and kind of similar to what Guilliaman was trying to do with the Primaris Marines, but this was actually attempted during the Heresy, and yeah, it didn't quite work out because the Alpha Legion managed to taint the gene seed, so they ended up producing these sort of mutated monsters where they'd been planning to make more legionaries, and eventually these guys had to be locked away, and finally Corex killed them with his own hand. And a year later, after sort of moping around, being really depressed about what he'd done, he left, and his final recorded words are reputed to be "nevermore," which obviously is completely stolen from an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Try saying that 3 times fast. So yeah, it's not said where he's gone somewhere. We don't know quite why he went there. but with those final words of nevermore, other than it just being a play on a famous poem, does suggest he isn't planning to come back. So I don't think we're going to get Corex. So after 4 that I'm pretty sure we're not going to get, there's now a few that, you know what, I think there's a chance we might see some of these guys. So Jagatai Khan, White Scars. So he got lost during the Webway battling the Dark Eldar, I believe. So he is lost, but he's not missing. It's been a very long time, but Primarchs can be extraordinarily long-lived, and time doesn't quite work the same way in the warp. So it's entirely possible that he could, and obviously the Webway being an extension of the warp, I imagine that would apply too. So it's entirely possible he could turn, he could turn up. He'd be really cool. He's kind of like Genghis Khan in the future on a bike, possibly a jet bike. So, it's certainly an interesting option. But the White Scars aren't given as much attention as some chapters, so maybe not, but we shall see. Then we've got Liam and Russ. Now this would be a really popular one, particularly if they actually produce a model of Liam and Russ with a beard. Why the Forge World model doesn't have a beard, I do not know. Liam and Russ should have a beard. But anyway, he left on a great hunt with his main sort of officers and advisors, for want of a better term, leaving only Bjorn to be in charge in his absence, and obviously that's then gone down through various other great wolves throughout the history of the chapter. But anyway, he's actually said he would return at the end of time, so the galaxy's in the darkest place it's been for a long time. There's a great big warp rift running right down the middle of it. Fenris has been directly attacked by the Thousand Suns again. It's entirely possible that Russ could now pick the moment to come back. But why didn't they do it with Warzone Fenris? It does seem like that was such a good opportunity missed. Makes you wonder, are they going to do it? But I really hope they do, because Liam and Russ in 40k would be cool. Now, Vulcan. Now this is an interesting one, because Vulcan is confirmed dead. In fact, he's been confirmed dead multiple times. You see, the thing with Vulcan is he's what's called a perpetual. Now, if you read the Horus Heresy novels, you'll know about perpetuals. They're a class of humans, very, very rare class, who basically, when they die, they just come back to life again after a relatively short period of time. There's a couple of famous examples: Orlanius Person, who's also known as Pius Ol. There's John Grammaticus, who's kind of been involved with the Alpha Legion, and obviously Vulcan. Now, he died originally on what's that? I should know this. Isvar. Yeah, Isvar 5, Isvar 3, the big battle where all the legions about half the legions got involved and had a big old fight, and ferrous Manus died, and Vulcan died as well, but being a perpetual, he kind of respawned, but found he'd been captured by Conrad Kurz, actually died multiple times while being tortured by Kurz before finally escaping, and then realising he was actually in space and falling out of high orbit above Macragge, crashing through Macragge's atmosphere, burning up on re-entry, hitting the ground. Within a couple of days he was back up, although had completely lost his mind. The story goes on. He's was dead for actually a fair length of time because of something done to him by another perpetual, and then goes back to Nocturne. They think he's finally dead. They put his body in Mount Deathfire so it can return to the planet, and a week later he suddenly comes back. Vulcan is very, very hard to keep down because he's a perpetual. So he's then carried on leading the chapter, or the legion, and subsequently the chapter, and yeah, eventually died sometime after the Horus Heresy. I believe it was inside an Orc Gargant fighting against an Orc war boss known as the Beast, and basically he made the reactor of the Gargant go critical and blew it up. So he's missing, presumed dead, but we know for a fact that Vulcan can come back. He's done it enough times before. There's also the prophecy. It is prophesied that once the Forge Father, so the ceremonial position currently held by Vulcan Hastan, once he has found all of the relics that he's searching for, and he's got over half of them right now, and it may not be Vulcan Hastan who does it, it may be a subsequent Forge Father. The prophecy doesn't specifically relate to Hastan, but once they're all found, apparently Vulcan is going to return to lead the chapter again. So, you know, this seems quite likely. There's a lot of great story you could tell, there's really good reason why. I may be a bit biased because I'm a Salamanders player, you know, I will admit that, but yeah, it would be awesome, and there's totally ways they could incorporate it into the fluff. Now finally, the last Primarch, the one I think, if we're going to get any loyalist Imperial Primarchs, is one we're going to get. Lionel Johnson, the Lion, Primarch of the Dark Angels. So he's actually alive. I believe he's mortally wounded. From the research I did, sort of looking in the fluff, he was mortally wounded and he's in stasis in a similar manner to what Guilliaman was. He was mortally wounded by a psychic attack that literally split the planet apart, and is the reason that Caliban isn't a planet anymore. The Dark Angels just have a rock that they ride around on called the Rock, because creativity apparently. Yeah, so he is alive, but none of the Dark Angels know it. Not even the Chapter Master knows that deep, deep, deep down in the rock, he is in stasis. And who knows that he's there? Probably only the Watchers in the Dark and the Emperor. And it is said by some of the Dark Angels, who don't even know that he's there, that one day he'll return. So, you know, he just seems the most likely candidate, and Dark Angels have always been popular. I really don't see why they couldn't do this, unless they're planning to make no more Imperial Primarchs and only focus on Chaos ones and Guilliaman. I think if you're going to do an Imperial Primarch, Lionel Johnson is the one, and I think a lot of people would be very happy about that. Certainly a lot of cool story you could do there. What's his relation to Cypher? How's he going to react to the Fallen? Are some of the Fallen loyal? There's so much you could do with this. You know, you could easily make like a really good supplement along the lines of a Rise of the Primarch type book with that. So mostly fluff with a little bit of rules at the back for a few new models. But we shall see. Time will hopefully tell. Anyway, let me know what you think in the description below. Not in the description, in the comments. Can you tell I'm a bit tired? You know, which Primarch would you like to see? And, you know, do you think any of these will actually happen? Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.